I kicked the door with full force, and the lock shattered under the impact. The door slammed against the wall, the echo of destruction fueling my rage. Without hesitation, I stormed inside. The first thing I saw made my blood boil. 5 naked men and my unconscious wife sprawled on the bed. Jim was on top of her. A red haze clouded my vision, and a single thought consumed me. These bastards had to pay. I swung my hand and struck Jim across the face. He crumpled instantly. The others reacted, charging at me, but I was faster. Larry, the first to lunge, doubled over in agony as my knee crashed into his groin, folding him like a paper doll. Zurich, Switzerland, a city of luxury wealth and secrets buried beneath its elegance. I had spent years building my career as a senior risk analyst, predicting financial catastrophes before they unfolded. Yet, the one disaster I never foresaw was my own wife's betrayal. My name is Sebastian Roth. For 10 years, I have been married to Elise, a woman I had believed to be my partner, my equal, my everything. We had met in graduate school, climbed the corporate ladder together, and created a life of prestige, travel, and power, or so I had thought. It started with subtle signs. A lingering scent on her clothes that wasn't mine. New friends she never introduced me to. Mysterious weekend getaways disguised as self-care retreats. The worst part? I trusted her. Until the night my world came crashing down. Elise had told me she was spending the weekend at a spa retreat with friends. But something felt wrong. So, I hired Marcus, a private investigator I had used in high-stakes corporate fraud cases. If he could uncover billion-dollar scams, he could expose whatever my wife was hiding. What he found made my blood run cold. She wasn't at a spa. She was at a secluded villa on the outskirts of Zurich, a property owned by James Jim Miller, a notorious real estate tycoon known for his depravity. And she wasn't alone. 5 men, 5 wealthy, powerful, twisted men, and my wife. I arrived at the villa at midnight. The security was laughable, overconfident, careless. I disabled the cameras at the gate and moved silently through the lavish gardens, my heart pounding like a war drum. As I reached the door, I heard muffled laughter, hushed voices, music, and then an eerie silence. I didn't think. I acted. I raised my foot and kicked the door with everything I had. The lock snapped. The door slammed against the wall, and the paintings trembled from the force. Then I saw them. 5 naked men. Elise, unconscious, motionless on the bed, and Jim Miller, looming over her. A crimson rage overtook me. In 3 strides, I crossed the room. My hand moved faster than my thoughts. Smack. My palm crashed into Jim's face, so hard that he tumbled off the bed, hitting the floor with a sickening thud. The other men froze in shock. Then chaos erupted. Larry, a British hedge fund CEO, lunged at me. Bad move. I shifted my weight and drove my knee into his groin. He let out a strangled scream, collapsing onto the floor, clutching himself like a wounded animal. The others hesitated, but not for long. One of them, a towering German banker named Klaus, roared in fury and charged. I let him come. At the last second, I sidestepped, grabbed a bottle of Dom Perignon from the nightstand, and swung it like a baseball bat. Crack! The bottle shattered against Klaus's skull. He dropped onto the bed, unconscious before his body even hit the sheets. 3 down, 2 to go. The last 2 men, a Swiss politician and a Dutch venture capitalist, exchanged nervous glances. They weren't fighters. They were cowards. Their hands shot up in surrender. We didn't know she was married," one of them stammered. I pointed at Elise, still unconscious on the bed. "Then what the hell do you call that?" I growled. They looked at each other again, then bolted for the door, fleeing like rats from a sinking ship. Good. They weren't my real targets. My real target was still on the floor. Jim Miller, the ringleader, the man who ruined lives for sport. I walked toward him slowly, deliberately, my footsteps echoing in the silent room. He looked up at me, trying to summon his usual arrogant smirk, but there was fear in his eyes. "Why you don't want to do this, Roth?" he gasped. "You know who I am. I can bury you in lawsuits. I have." I cut him off with a vicious kick to his ribs. He let out a choked scream, rolling onto his side, gasping for air. I knelt beside him, grabbed his jaw, and forced him to look me in the eyes. "You took something from me," I whispered, my voice deadly calm. "So now, I take everything from you." I carried A.S. out of that house. She was still breathing, still warm, yet utterly oblivious to what had just transpired. By the time we arrived at our penthouse, she began stirring, groaning softly as she sat up in the passenger seat. "Sebastian," she mumbled. I parked the car in silence, refusing to acknowledge her. She rubbed her temples, disoriented, scanning her surroundings. Where am I? What happened? My grip on the steering wheel tightened until my knuckles turned ghostly white. Then I turned to face her. "You tell me, Elise." She blinked, bewildered. I don't remember." Without a word, I retrieved my phone, pulled up the damning photographs Marcus had captured, and tossed it onto her lap. Her eyes widened as she stared at the screen, and within seconds, her complexion drained of all color. A tremor coursed through her fingers as she swiped through each incriminating image, shot after shot of her at the villa, drinking, flirting with those men, leading them upstairs. She knew she was caught. "Sebastian," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I didn't mean." I stepped out of the car before she could finish. I had no patience for her excuses because this wasn't just infidelity. It was the ultimate betrayal, and she was about to experience the full extent of my vengeance. By morning, Jim Miller's name was splashed across every major news outlet. How? Because I insured it. Financial ruin. I personally reached out to every investor, every business associate he had, and laid bare his filthy secrets. His assets, frozen. His stocks, dumped. His company's valuation, it nosedived overnight. Legal hell. The Swiss authorities suddenly had a detailed dossier of allegations against him, fraud, embezzlement, even links to money laundering. By the end of the week, his entire empire was under intense scrutiny. Social exile. I leaked the villa footage to select media networks. Jim Miller wasn't just a disgraced entrepreneur anymore. He was a walking scandal. He lost everything. His empire, his fortune, his influence. Within 2 months, he was a shadow of his former self, living in seclusion, a shattered man hiding from the public eye. Perfect, but I wasn't finished. The divorce papers awaited Elise the following morning. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at them as though they were her death warrant. Tears brimmed in her eyes. "Why you're really doing this?" I took a slow sip of my coffee. "You did this, Elise," I said evenly. "You made your decision. Now, you live with it." She glanced down at the papers, her hands quivering. "I don't want to lose you," she murmured. A bitter chuckle escaped my lips. "You already have." She signed, and just like that, she was erased from my life. No settlement, no financial compensation, nothing. She left our penthouse with only the clothes on her back, and I never spared her another glance. It's been 6 months since that night. Jim Miller is a ghost of his former self. After losing everything, he fled Switzerland. Last I heard, he was wasting away in a dingy apartment in Bangkok, drowning in his own regrets. Elise? She tried to reach out, pleaded for another chance. But I never answered. She made her choice, and I made mine. Because in the end, revenge isn't about fury. It's about reclaiming power. And I took every ounce of it back. Betrayal isn't merely a wound. It's a test. And those who think they can deceive without consequences always learn the hardest lesson.